My parents paid the golden child's entire mortgage while I starved. Then I sold my tech firm. The notification lit up my phone screen at exactly 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, while I was sitting in my apartment eating instant ramen for breakfast. It was from my bank, confirming the deposit that had cleared overnight. $32 million. I read the number 3 times, counting the zeros with my index finger against the cracked screen of my iPhone 8. The amount didn't feel real, didn't register as something that belonged to me. I waited for some kind of emotional response, joy, relief, vindication, but all I felt was a hollow numbness in my chest. Hello friends, before I continue the story, please support the channel by becoming a subscriber and giving the video a like. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching right now. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my mother, Beverly. Marcus, baby, don't forget Sunday dinner is at 4, not 5. Your brother has an important announcement, so don't be late. Oh, and bring some of that potato salad from the store. You know I don't have time to make everything from scratch. I stared at the message for a long moment before locking my phone. The contrast was almost funny in a sick kind of way. Here I was, holding generational wealth in my checking account, and my mother was texting me instructions to pick up grocery store potato salad for my golden child brother's celebration dinner. My name is Marcus Elijah Thompson. I'm 34 years old, born and raised on the south side of Chicago before I moved out to Oakland 6 years ago. If you asked my family what I did for a living, they'd probably say something vague like he works with computers or he does that internet stuff. They never asked specifics, never showed interest in the late nights I spent building servers in my cramped bedroom or the machine learning algorithm I'd been developing since I was 27. They didn't know that I'd just sold my logistics optimization platform to FedEx. To them, I was Marcus, the quiet one, the one who didn't need much attention, the one who figured things out on his own. My older brother, Darnell, is 37. He's charismatic, tall, built like he still plays college ball even though he quit the team junior year, and completely directionless. But to Beverly and Raymond, my parents, he is the pride of the family. The son they brag about at church, the one whose face is plastered across every photo frame in their living room. I learned a long time ago that love in our family wasn't divided equally. It was allocated based on some invisible metric that Darnell had mastered and I had failed before I even understood the game. The inequality wasn't accidental. It was structural, built into the foundation of our household like load-bearing beams. I remember the exact day I realized I would never measure up, no matter what I accomplished. I was 16, sitting in the guidance counselor's office at South Shore High School. She had just told me I'd been accepted into a summer engineering program at Northwestern. Full scholarship, room and board included. It was competitive, only 20 students selected from the entire city. I was so proud I could barely sit still. I ran home with the acceptance letter, bursting through the front door of our 2-flat on 75th Street. My mother was in the kitchen cooking greens, and my father was in his recliner watching the Bulls game. I waved the letter in the air, breathless, telling them about Northwestern, about the robotics lab, about how this could help me get into a top engineering school. My mother glanced at the paper, nodded absently, and said, "That's nice, baby," before turning back to her pot. My father didn't even look away from the television. 2 days later, Darnell came home with a traffic ticket for street racing in my father's Buick. He'd been drag racing down Stony Island Avenue at 2 a.m., got clocked going 85 in a 35, and nearly totaled the car when he clipped a parked truck. The ticket was $1,200. Plus he'd cracked the bumper and destroyed the alignment. I thought my parents would lose their minds. Instead, my father sighed, pulled out his checkbook, and paid the ticket the next morning. My mother made Darnell his favorite meal, smothered pork chops, and told him, "We all make mistakes, honey. Just be more careful next time." That was the lesson. Darnell's recklessness was boys being boys. My achievements were expected, unremarkable, not worth interrupting dinner. I didn't throw a tantrum or demand fairness. I just quietly withdrew. I stopped expecting them to show up to my academic awards ceremonies. I stopped mentioning my grades or my projects. I got a job at a computer repair shop in Hyde Park, saved every dollar, and learned to make myself invisible. When I graduated high school with honors and a full ride to the University of Illinois for computer engineering, my parents came to the ceremony. But they spent the whole time talking about Darnell, who had just been hired as a personal trainer at LA Fitness. Personal trainer. My mother told every relative at my graduation party that Darnell was going to open his own gym someday, that he had the vision and the drive. Nobody asked me about my plans. I moved to Champaign-Urbana that fall, and I don't think they noticed I was gone. Darnell, meanwhile, floated through his 20s on a cloud of parental subsidy and unchecked ambition. He quit the personal training job after 8 months because the manager didn't respect his ideas. He moved back home, rent-free, and announced he was going to start a fitness apparel company. My parents were thrilled. Raymond cashed out part of his 401k, $30,000, to help Darnell invest in his dream. The company never materialized. Darnell spent the money on screen printing equipment he never learned to use and a leased Range Rover to project success. When the Range Rover got repossessed 14 months later, my parents paid off the remaining balance so it wouldn't hurt Darnell's credit. When he got evicted from the luxury apartment he'd rented in River North, the one he couldn't afford, they helped him move into a condo they bought in Bronzeville. Not rented. Bought. A 2-bedroom condo with granite countertops and a doorman, purchased with a combination of their savings and a second mortgage on the house they'd owned outright for 20 years. I was in my second year of grad school at the time, living off ramen and freelance coding gigs, sleeping on a futon in a basement studio that flooded every time it rained. I called my mother once to ask if they could help me with a $600 emergency dental bill. I had an infected molar that was causing migraines so severe I couldn't see straight. She sighed deeply, like I was asking her to donate a kidney. "Marcus, we just don't have it right now," she said. "Money is really tight with everything going on." Everything going on was code for Darnell. 2 weeks later, I saw on Facebook that they'd bought him a new living room set from Ashley Furniture. I paid for the tooth extraction myself by selling my laptop and borrowing the rest from a classmate. I didn't complain. I didn't call them out. I just added it to the mental ledger I'd been keeping since I was 16. And I kept building. I finished my master's degree in machine learning. I moved to Oakland and took a job at a mid-sized tech company doing data infrastructure. I lived in a tiny studio in Fruitvale, drove a 2008 Honda Accord with a mismatched door, and spent every free hour coding my platform. My software, OptiPath, was designed to optimize delivery routes for logistics companies using real-time data and predictive algorithms. Could save companies millions in fuel costs and delivery times. I beta tested it with small regional carriers, refined it, scaled it, and eventually caught the attention of FedEx. They offered to acquire it last month. The deal closed on Tuesday, $32 million. After taxes and paying back my angel investors, I'd walk away with about $24 million personally. I didn't tell my family. Why would I? They'd never asked about OptiPath when I mentioned it in passing years ago. They didn't ask how work was going or what I was building. The only time my mother called was to remind me about family obligations or to ask if I could lend Darnell gas money. And now, sitting in my apartment with a fortune in my account, I was expected to show up on Sunday with potato salad to celebrate whatever mediocre milestone Darnell had achieved this week. The weekend arrived faster than I wanted. Saturday night, I lay awake in my apartment staring at the ceiling, debating whether I should even go. I could be anywhere right now. I could be booking a flight to Accra or Tokyo. I could be house hunting in the Oakland Hills. I could be doing literally anything other than driving back to a family that treated me like an accessory. But I went anyway because some part of me, some stupid, stubborn part, still hoped that maybe this time would be different. The drive from Oakland to Chicago is a 30-hour nightmare, so I flew. I landed at Midway on Sunday morning, rented a car, and drove south toward the old neighborhood. The streets looked the same, familiar blocks of brick bungalows and corner stores. I stopped at Jewel-Osco to pick up the potato salad my mother requested, standing in the deli section with my phone in my hand, staring at my bank balance. $32 million. And I was buying a $7 tub of potato salad because my mother didn't have time to make it herself. I pulled up to my parents' house just before 4 p.m. The lawn was neatly trimmed, the shutters freshly painted. It looked like a normal, respectable home. You wouldn't know that the people inside had mortgaged their future to subsidize a 37-year-old man's fantasy of being an entrepreneur. I grabbed the potato salad and walked up the steps. The door opened before I could knock. My father stood there, barely glancing at me. "You're on time for once," he said. "Darnell's in the living room." No hello. No hug. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me immediately. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, greens, cornbread. My mother went all out. The living room was decorated like a celebration. Balloons in the corner. A congratulations banner stretched across the wall. I looked around, confused. Congratulations for what? My mother rushed out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Marcus," she said, giving me a quick, distracted hug. "Oh good, you brought the potato salad. Put it in the kitchen. Did you get the kind with the eggs and relish? What's the celebration for?" I asked. She beamed. "Darnell didn't tell you? He's been accepted into a business accelerator program. They're going to help him launch his new company. Isn't that amazing?" I blinked. "What company?" "His consulting firm," she said proudly. "He's going to help gyms and fitness studios with their branding and marketing. The accelerator is covering his costs, and he'll get mentorship from real executives." I walked into the living room. Darnell was sitting on the couch, grinning, holding court with a couple of cousins who'd come over. He looked good, healthy, confident, wearing a designer tracksuit I knew he couldn't afford. "Little brother," he called out, not getting up. He raised a glass of Hennessy in my direction. "Glad you could make it." "Congrats," I said flatly. "Thanks, man," he said. "It's been a grind, you know? But I finally got the break I needed. This accelerator is legit. They're giving me office space, resources, the whole thing." "That's great," I said. I didn't mention that most business accelerators don't accept people without a functional business. I didn't mention that consulting firms require clients, revenue, an actual track record. I just nodded and walked into the kitchen. My Aunt Shanice was there, helping my mother plate the food. She was my father's older sister, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. The only person in the family who ever called out the favoritism. "Marcus," she said, pulling me into a real hug. "How you doing, baby?" "I'm good, Auntie," I said. She pulled back, looking at me closely. Her eyes dropped to my wrist. I was wearing a watch, a vintage Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. I'd bought it the day after the deal closed, the only thing I'd purchased for myself. It was understated, elegant, but Aunt Shanice knew jewelry. Her eyes widened just slightly. She looked from the watch to my face, studying me. "Marcus," she said quietly, so my mother wouldn't hear. "When did you get that watch?" "Recently," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "Recently like last week? Or recently like you hit the lottery recently?" I gave her a small smile. "Let's talk later, Auntie." She squeezed my arm. "Oh, we definitely will." Dinner was a production. We all sat around the dining room table, plates piled high with food. Darnell sat at the head of the table, naturally, with my parents on either side of him like he was holding court. I sat near the end, next to Aunt Shanice. The conversation revolved entirely around Darnell's accelerator program, his business plan, his vision for disrupting the fitness industry. My mother hung on every word. My father nodded approvingly, talking about entrepreneurship and legacy. But something was off with Darnell tonight. Usually he was loud, boisterous, the center of attention without effort. Tonight he seemed jittery. His leg was bouncing under the table, shaking the floorboards. He kept checking his phone, which was face down next to his plate. Every time it buzzed, and it buzzed constantly, his jaw would tighten. He was drinking too much, too fast, refilling his Hennessy glass every 10 minutes. "So, Darnell," my father said, beaming, "when does the program officially start?" Darnell swallowed hard. Next month," he said. "They're finalizing the cohort. And they're covering all the costs?" Aunt Shanice asked, her tone skeptical. "Office space, mentorship, everything?" "Yeah," Darnell said quickly. "It's a fully funded program. How much equity do they take?" I asked. The table went quiet. Darnell looked at me, his eyes narrowing. What? Most accelerators take equity in exchange for funding, I said calmly. Usually 5 to 10%. How much are they taking from your company? Darnell's face flushed. It's a different model, he stammered. It's more like a fellowship. A fellowship, I repeated. So they're giving you free resources and asking for nothing in return? Why are you interrogating him? My mother snapped, glaring at me. He's just asking questions, Bev, Aunt Shanice said. Seems reasonable. It's fine, Darnell said, his voice tight. Marcus always thinks he knows everything because he works in tech. I'm just curious, I said. I work in the industry. I know how these programs work. You work in IT support, Marcus, my father said dismissively. Darnell is building something. This is entrepreneurship, not fixing somebody's printer. The words hit me like a slap. IT support. After everything I'd built, every line of code, every sleepless night, my father genuinely believed I was a help desk technician. And nobody at the table corrected him. Nobody asked what I actually did. I looked down at my plate, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. These people didn't know me. They never had. And they never would because they'd never bothered to ask. I put down my fork. Actually, Dad, I said, my voice calm, I don't work in IT support. He frowned. What? I don't fix printers, I continued. I haven't worked a help desk job since I was 22. I built a software company. I've been the CEO for the last 6 years. The table went silent. My mother blinked at me like I was speaking another language. A software company? She repeated. What kind of software? Logistics optimization, I said. I developed an algorithm that helps shipping companies save time and money on deliveries. OptiPath. I've mentioned it before. You never said you were the CEO, my father said slowly. I told you I was building a platform, I said. You never asked for details. Darnell shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Okay, so you have a little tech startup, he said, forcing a laugh. That's cool, man. Congrats. It's not a startup anymore, I said. I sold it. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My father stared at me like I just told him I was moving to Mars. Sold it? My mother whispered. To who? FedEx, I said. The deal closed on Tuesday. For how much? Darnell's voice cracked when he asked. He wasn't laughing anymore. His face had gone pale. I looked at him, then at my parents, then at Aunt Shanice, who was watching me with fierce pride in her eyes. $32 million, I said. The room exploded, not with congratulations or joy, but with shock and something darker. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. My father's mouth fell open. Darnell stood up so fast his chair fell backward. 32. My mother couldn't finish the sentence. $1 million? My father finally managed. Yes, I said. After taxes and investor payouts, I'll personally clear about $24 million. Darnell looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. His face went from pale to gray. He grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself. You have that money right now? He asked, his voice shaking. It's in my account, I said. And then Darnell did something I will never forget. He didn't congratulate me. He didn't express happiness or pride. He looked at me with wild, desperate eyes and said, I need it. I stared at him. What? I need money, Marcus, he said, his voice rising in pitch. I need a lot of it. How much? I asked slowly. $850,000, he said. The number hung in the air like a grenade. My parents were frozen, staring at him. $850,000, I repeated. For what? I made some bad investments, he said, his hands shaking. I got involved with some people and I owe them. What people? Aunt Shanice demanded. Investors, Darnell said, but his eyes were darting around the room. Private investors. You mean loan sharks? I said quietly. He flinched. "They're going to hurt me, Marcus," he whispered. "If I don't pay by the end of the month, they said they'd." He trailed off. My mother stood up, her face white. "Oh my God, Darnell, what did you do?" "I thought it would work," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought the crypto would hit, and I could pay them back. But it crashed. I lost everything." "Crypto," my father said, his voice hollow. "You gambled $850,000 on cryptocurrency?" "I borrowed it to invest," Darnell said. "I was going to triple it. But the market." "You don't have $850,000, I said. "Where did you get that kind of loan?" Darnell looked at my parents. My mother's face crumpled. "Darnell," she whispered. "You didn't." "I had to use the condo as collateral," he said. "And I took out some credit cards in your names." My father stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. "You took out credit cards in our names?" "I was going to pay them off," Darnell shouted. "It was supposed to work." "How much?" my father demanded. "How much did you put on our credit?" Darnell looked down. "About $200,000, he mumbled. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. My father grabbed the back of his chair to keep from falling. Their credit was destroyed. Their retirement was gone. The condo they'd bought him was going to be seized. And now Darnell owed nearly $1 million to people who break kneecaps for late payments. And then my mother turned to me. "Marcus," she said, her voice shaking. "You have to help him." I looked at her. "Excuse me? You just said you have $24 million, she said, her voice growing stronger, more demanding. "You can spare $850,000. That's not even 4% of what you have. You want me to give Darnell almost $1 million, I said slowly. "He's your brother," my father said. "Family takes care of family." I laughed. It was a bitter, cold sound that I didn't recognize as my own. "Family takes care of family," I repeated. Where was that energy when I needed $600 for a dental emergency? When I was eating ramen for every meal while you bought Darnell a condo? My mother's face hardened. "That's different." "How?" I demanded. "How is it different?" "Because Darnell needed our help to get on his feet," she said. "You were always fine on your own. You didn't need us." "I needed you," I said, my voice breaking. "I needed you my whole life. And you never showed up. We fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head," my father said. "We did our job. You did the bare minimum," I shot back. "And you gave Darnell everything. Because he needed it," my mother screamed. "You were smart, Marcus. You figured things out. Darnell needed more support. So you're punishing me for being self-sufficient," I said. "You're saying because I didn't fail constantly, I didn't deserve your love." "Don't be dramatic," my father said. "This isn't about love. It's about helping your brother in a crisis. He's going to get hurt, Marcus," my mother pleaded. "These people will kill him. Please." I looked at Darnell, who was standing there, tears streaming down his face, waiting for me to save him like I'd watched my parents save him 100 times before. And I realized something in that moment. If I gave him the money, it wouldn't change anything. He'd blow through it, get into another mess, and come back for more. My parents would continue to enable him, continue to sacrifice everything for his delusions. And I would still be invisible. I would still be the ATM, the safety net, the responsible one who didn't need love because he had money. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it cut through the room like a gunshot. "What?" my mother gasped. "No," I said again, louder. "I'm not giving him the money." "Marcus, please," Darnell begged, stepping toward me. "I'll pay you back. I swear." "You've never paid anyone back in your life," I said. "You're selfish," my mother hissed. "You'd let your own brother die because of pride?" "I'd let my brother face the consequences of his actions," I said. "Something you should have done 20 years ago." "Get out," my father said, his voice shaking with rage. "Get out of this house." "Gladly," I said. I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Darnell sobbing, my mother screaming my name, my father cursing. I didn't look back. I walked out into the cold Chicago night and got in my rental car. My phone started ringing before I even pulled out of the driveway. I didn't answer. I drove to a hotel downtown, checked in, and sat on the bed, staring at the wall. The calls didn't stop. 15, 20, 30 missed calls. Text messages flooded in. From my mother, "You're killing your brother. How can you live with yourself?" From my father, "You're no son of mine." From Darnell, "Please, Marcus, I'm begging you. They're going to kill me." And then the extended family started. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Uncles. Family friends. My mother had activated the entire network. The messages all said the same thing. "How could you be so selfish? Family helps family. You have millions. Why won't you help?" I blocked them all. Every single number. And then my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Marcus, baby?" Aunt Shanice's voice came through, calm and steady. "Are you okay?" I exhaled, feeling tears burn my eyes. "I don't know, Auntie. Where are you?" "Downtown," I said. "The Hilton." "I'm coming to you," she said. "Don't move." She showed up 40 minutes later with a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. We sat in my hotel room, and I told her everything. The years of neglect, the favoritism, the debt, the desperation. She listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she poured us both a drink. "You did the right thing," she said. "He's going to get hurt," I said. "Maybe," she said. "But that's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility." "My mother thinks I'm a monster," I said. "Your mother enabled a grown man into destruction," Aunt Shanice said. "And now she's trying to do the same to you. Don't let her." I took a sip of bourbon, feeling it burn down my throat. "What do I do now?" "You live your life," she said. "You build something beautiful with that money. You find people who love you for who you are, not what you can give them. And you let them go." I nodded slowly. "It hurts," I admitted. "I know, baby," she said, squeezing my hand. "But freedom usually does." I stayed in Chicago for 2 more days, meeting with a financial advisor and setting up trusts and investment accounts. I didn't contact my family. I didn't answer their calls. On the 3rd day, I flew back to Oakland. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Mr. Thompson?" a professional voice said. "This is Detective Maria Gonzalez with the Chicago Police Department." My heart stopped. "Is this about my brother?" I asked. "Is he?" "Your brother is alive," she said. "But he's been hospitalized. He was assaulted by 2 men believed to be associated with an illegal gambling operation. He's in stable condition, but he's facing charges for fraud related to identity theft and credit card fraud." I closed my eyes. "What do you need from me?" "We need you to come in and give a statement," she said. "Your parents filed a report claiming you have power of attorney over their finances, and they're trying to access your accounts to pay your brother's debts." I sat up straight. "I don't have power of attorney," I said. "They're lying." "We suspected as much," Detective Gonzalez said. "But we need you to confirm it officially. We also have evidence that your mother attempted to impersonate you to your bank." I felt cold all over. "She did what?" "She called your bank claiming to be you and tried to authorize a wire transfer," the detective said. "The bank flagged it as fraud. We're investigating." My mother had tried to steal from me. Not asked. Not begged. Stolen. "I'll cooperate fully," I said. "Send me the details." I hired a lawyer, not a family attorney, but a criminal defense lawyer who specialized in financial fraud. We built a case, not to prosecute my family, but to protect myself. We filed restraining orders. We documented every attempt they'd made to access my money. And then my lawyer drafted a settlement. It was brutal and final. It stated that my parents and Darnell would never contact me again. They would acknowledge no claim to my assets. If they violated the agreement, We would pursue criminal charges for fraud and identity theft. I had the papers delivered to their apartment. My father called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered once. "You'd send your own mother to jail?" he said, his voice hoarse. "You'd destroy your family over money?" "You destroyed this family a long time ago, Dad," I said quietly. "I'm just refusing to go down with the ship." I hung up. 3 days later, the signed settlement arrived. They'd agreed to everything. I felt nothing. No relief. No guilt. Just a quiet sense of closure. 6 months have passed since that Sunday dinner. I didn't stay in Oakland. I moved to Atlanta, bought a beautiful loft in the Old Fourth Ward, and started an investment fund focused on Black-owned tech startups. Specifically founders who come from difficult family situations, people who built something from nothing with no support. I received one letter last month, forwarded from my old address. It was from Aunt Shanice. She told me that Darnell lost the condo. My parents are living in a subsidized apartment on the west side. Darnell is working part-time at a UPS store, still recovering from the assault. My mother tells everyone I abandoned the family, that I'm selfish and heartless. Aunt Shanice said she set the record straight at the last family gathering. She told them exactly what happened, exactly how they treated me for 34 years. Half the family stopped speaking to her. She said it was worth it. I wrote her back, thanking her. I sent her a check for $50,000. She called me crying, saying it was too much. I told her it wasn't enough for a lifetime of being the only person who saw me. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd given Darnell the money. Would it have bought me a place in their hearts? Would they have finally loved me? The answer is always the same. No. You can't buy love from people who see you as a resource. You can't fill a void in people who refuse to see it exists. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped letting them destroy me. I chose myself for the first time in my life. And every single day, I wake up in my loft, look out at the Atlanta skyline, and feel something I've never felt before. Peace. I built a life they'll never understand, and I'm finally okay with that. They can keep their golden child, their delusions, their resentment. I have something more valuable. I have my freedom. Thank you for watching all the way through. There's another story to your left screen. You'll enjoy it more than this one.